Max Verstappen finally had his GT3 debut on the Nürburgring by completely dominating the race and also winning. To be honest, at this point, the majority of motorsport world and car world and everyone have written about it, shown some pictures and videos, and it's making absolute buzz around the car world. So today, I would like to actually look at the bigger picture, because in my opinion, what has happened so far, and if this continues to happen, we will probably classify the pre-Verstappen Nürburgring era and the post-Verstappen Nürburgring era. And in my opinion, we had already these key moments in the past, such as, for example, Sabine Schmitz doing a lap in a transit van in top gear, because before that episode aired, you could actually stop on the Nürburgring while doing a lap, take some pictures. Selfies were not really a thing back then in the 90s, and continue with your lap. Then the popularity exploded. Then about a decade or so ago, social media contributed again to a massive rise in popularity of the Nürburgring, from crash videos to vlogs and to also onboard videos between different channels. It sparked the excitement for the Nürburgring among more of the younger audience. And now we have Formula One, four-time Formula One champion, that is deciding to kind of on his free time, while recently becoming a dad, step out of Formula One craziness and pursue his dream of racing somewhere in the woods in Germany. And this is going to have massive effect to the Nürburgring, which is my channel mostly is about, but also a lot of other interesting things have happened during the race weekend. So first, a quick flashback. Earlier this year, Franz Herrmann, basically Max under his secret name, decided to enter one of the NLS Nürburgring Endurance Series tests with his Ferrari GT3. And he actually unofficially broke the lap record by then. Why unofficially? Because it was simply tests. There were no official timing, so we could only say from what we have seen, either by clocking him or him internally, externally sharing his lap times with other people, something that he has made public much more later after the test. Then, more importantly, 2 weeks ago, it was finally time for him to officially race at the Nürburgring. Now, to race the Nürburgring Endurance Series, you need to get so-called Nordschleife Permit. And for that, you need to qualify, you need to fulfill a certain amount of laps, finish within a certain percentage of your racing class before they will allow you to race the GT3 races. The coolest thing about it is that Max was absolutely humble, and he said rules are rules. It doesn't matter if I'm a F1 world champion, I'm still going to do that. And this is great, and this humbleness showed also throughout this last race weekend of him, for which I really want to commend him and also his whole race team. I find it, however, also very important for Max to compete these laps in a slower car. The reason for that, because he gets to drive later in a GT3 race car. Keep racing to the tracks, people, not on the public roads. This is douchey. As of now, he has gotten to drive already in a very fast car, but the beauty of the Nürburgring Endurance Series is that it's a multi-class racing. You have GT3 cars, and you have also slower cars like Dacia, or Twingo maybe in the future, maybe Civic in the future, and everything in between, such as like BMWs, M2s, Caymans, classic cars sometimes as well. And to show the people, the pro drivers, what the speed difference is, it's good for them to do a couple of laps in a slow car while they being passed by a GT3 car, so they know how it feels later for other participants when they're sitting in a fast car. Anyway, after passing his Nürburgring exam together with Christopher Lalhem, his teammate from Verstappen.com Racing for Emil Frey Racing, they were able to participate, compete and dominate last weekend's race in a GT3, in the Ferrari 296 GT3. Now, a short recap what has happened. Qualifying went already, or let's say started already, quite mind-blowingly impressive when he put everywhere purple sectors. He was dominating, but it was wet. Later, when the track dried out, other people managed to set more faster lap time that he had done, and he couldn't do it because he had bad traffic, and otherwise it would have been quite interesting. So maybe not hat trick if you would have the fastest lap, pole, and leading the whole of the race, what they had done, and also winning. This didn't happen, but I guess it gives them a taste to come back for more. Regardless, once the race had started, immediately after the first corner, Max overtook P2 and P1 and became P1 himself. And by the end of his double stint, after 2 hours of the 4-hour race, he managed to make the gap of the lead by 1 minute 10 seconds, which is quite big if you ask me. Later, Christopher jumped in the car and they finished the race still on the first position with, I believe, 24 seconds gap to P2. Of course, fantastic and insane result, but now let's talk about some very interesting and important things that I would like to mention. First of all, P1 and P2, something very impressive. P2 was actually driven by another very interesting person, if I might say so, Jan Mardenborough, who you might know as the hero from the Gran Turismo franchise, who won the Gran Turismo Academy, became a race car driver himself, and ever since has lots of great and inspirational achievements as a real world race car drivers. But what I want to get at, this is actually extremely interesting. We have Jan on P2, who managed to close the gap to Verstappen.com race car from 1 minute 10 to just 24 seconds, together of course with their teammates and traffic and etc, etc. We have Christopher Lallam, who started, of course he had some karting experience, but he went more professionally in iRacing as a sim racer back in 2019 up until now, and he was so good that Max Verstappen chose him among also other drivers to participate in his Verstappen.com race team, where he wants to give opportunities to drivers who come from sim racing and put them in the real race car driver seat. Right now, Christopher Lallam is extremely successful in the Fanatec World GT Sprint Series. He also had many other successes, but we have Jan, we have Chris, we have Max Verstappen, who is also a highly successful sim racer. We have Jimmy Broadbent, Steve Alvarez-Brown, my teammates. We have Tim Heinemann, who is extremely successful now, coming from KW to Falcon Race Team, of course. Highly successful sim racers who are becoming dominating real life racers. So the result of last weekend and all the other achievements of other drivers that I mentioned should definitely by now kill the stigma of the fact, oh, sim racers are just some gamers. I believe, as a matter of fact, that in between now to the next 10 years is going to be mandatory to be a sim racer before you're going to be considered a professional race car driver, I would say, by teams, so you can start competing in real life racing. And people will not really look at it, oh, sim racing is just a game, because let's face it, the reality is you only need a sim, hardware, electricity bill, of course, and you can drive as much as you want. If you crash, you just hit the restart button and you go again. The reason why it is so hard to become a professional race car driver and to make it up to Formula 1 is because the running costs or travel costs. If you go into karting championship, I believe the first racing years cost you already €250,000. To the world karting championship, you might be spending up to €1 million a year, because you have the team costs, travel costs, the running costs of a car purchase, tires, brakes, fuel, you name it. And in case of a sim, again, just electricity and the purchase price of the sim. By the way, reach out to my friends at Nova Sim if you want to have a special deal. Just tell them that you watched this video, because I'm their brand ambassador and I'm sure they would love to help the next generation of sim racing drivers. Alright, enough about sim racing. Now about the fact of Max Verstappen joining the Nürburgring Endurance Series, and later, most likely, the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. Whether it's going to be next year or after, we will see. This is going to have massive effect on the Endurance Series at the Nürburgring, but also Nürburgring in general, as mentioned at the introduction of this video. First of all, we have these superhumans like Max Verstappen all of a sudden joining Nürburgring Endurance Series. This is going to put lots of racing performance into perspective, but I hope also that this will actually open a gateway for other F1 teams, you know what, to simply join Nürburgring Endurance Series or World Endurance Championships, or WEC, because we have Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, they all have road cars, even Alpine, Aston Martin, they all have road cars. They can all come and join, and it's going to be much more affordable for them and much more interesting, because the GT3 cars have a bigger resemblance with a street car, and that becomes much more relatable to the general public, which is at the end of the day very good for the actual car sales. And this may attract new viewers because of relatability and simply because some might find F1 a bit too far-fetched, too far away from their bed. Who knows? It would be cool. Now, if this would happen, at what point do the current pro drivers, like factory drivers, who are extremely fast, but there's also another level of one drivers, who are gonna say like, hold on a second, this is completely different level. And what I'm getting at right now in SP9, which is the GT3 race class, you have SP9 AM for amateur drivers, SP9 Pro AM, where you're allowed to have, I think, 1 or 2, depending on classification of pro drivers in your class, together with amateurs, or SP Pro, where you have just the pro drivers based on their FIA classification, like gold or silver. I think it's gold only, might be also silver. And then you have people with super license who drive F1. So maybe at that point, we're gonna have 4 classifications. It's just like thinking out loud, thinking far ahead. Would be cool, would be interesting. Now, regardless what may or may not happen with the racing series, the fact is that Verstappen's performance on internet, media, social media, the interest, the amount of crowd and people that he drew in real life attendees to the actual social media posts is insane. It doesn't matter if people were just posting pictures or actually onboards of them being on track at the same time as Max Verstappen. The effect is massive. And this is extremely good for the racing series because racing is all about advertising, sponsors. And if all of a sudden you have not 5,000 live views, but 150,000 or even more, then all of a sudden the racing series can say like, well, sponsorship money for the racing series can be a bit higher, or sponsorship money for a particular driver, because a driver can say like, hey, I'm sharing the track with Max Verstappen. There is going to be a very high chance that at some point I will be overtaken by him, or I might overtake him, or whatever, or my car might be on the background. So it may become more interesting for potential sponsors to participate or support a certain driver, because there might be a sort of a viewership guarantee on their social media content or performance in general. Aside from that, also the race teams themselves can ask all of a sudden for higher money. And even if they don't, it is quite a cool thing to a gentleman driver, because I believe NLS, you could arrive and drive starting from like 4,000 to 6,000 euros for a full weekend. So you pay this amount and you get the car, you get participation fee, you get fuel, the race team and everything. It's a lot of money, of course. But like to start in a GT3 race car, it might be 25 or 30,000 euros. Maybe a bit below. I'm not that familiar with these prices yet. More on that later on. What I'm getting at is that the popularity of the Nürburgring Endurance Series and the Nürburgring with that by itself is going to exponentially explode. We're going to have a pre-Max Verstappen era and a post-Max Verstappen era. What's going to happen with that? And everything, the whole region, of course, is going to benefit from that. Imagine if he is going to end up doing a lap in public session, or it doesn't matter, could be private track day in a road car, and then the general public again will understand that like, hold on a second, there's a racetrack that I can go there with my own car and drive it all by myself, just like Max Verstappen does. That's going to do some certain things to the numbers of visitors that come to the track. What happened back then with Sabine Schmitz and her driving a lap with Clarkson in a transit van, what's been happening with social media, and what's going to be happening now. We already see these effects, for example, in the racing, because the amount of inquiries, again, from race car drivers, but to actually also people who want to come to watch the race or be in a VIP lounge, you name it, has been increasing extremely in the last few months, ever since Max started to participate in that. I personally find it a very good development for the region, for all the hotel owners, workshop owners, restaurants. By the way, did you see Max Verstappen went to Venti Sette? I wonder if he had the tiramisu. It's amazing. Some people might be unhappy because it's going to bring more popularity to Touristenfahrten and it's going to get even crazier, even busier. But hey, I still find it awesome that this track, one day you have F1 world champion racing and winning in a GT3, and the following, the same evening actually, you could go out in your own road car and have some fun laps just to enjoy. Alright, that's all I want to say. Let me know what you think of it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you find it cool that he participated? Are you looking forward to more popularity and him competing and racing and potentially winning N24? Potentially winning, his skill, no doubt, will bring him the win. Also, skill of his teammate or teammates will bring him the win, but N24 is so much more than pace alone. You could be unlucky with conditions, with fluid spills, with slower cars blocking you, crashing into you. There is so much more that can happen during N24. So yeah, pace-wise, he can definitely win it, but there's a lots of luck and gamble on N24. We will see next year if he will compete. First of all, we still have NLS 10 in 2 weeks time, the final race of the season, where also Jimmy and Steve, Manuel and myself will participate with our team Bilstein by Black Falcon in our M4 GT4. We haven't driven the last 2 races because it was decided already a couple of months ago that we wouldn't be driving them. That's why I'm actually sitting in Croatia right now in my M5 and making this video for you, enjoying today's actually first rainy day. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about the weather, but we'll be there. Not sure if Max will be there. I do not think so, because it's actually conflicting. He will definitely not be there because, as far as I know, it's conflicting with F1. But he said he wants to drive a few more races next year, and who knows, maybe even N24. So looking forward to that. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you. Bye-bye.